Crime, Wine, and Chaos contains adult language and graphic content. Listener discretion is advised.
We were made for each other, Chaos Kids. I'm Naomi.
Oh, I'm Amber, and this is Crime, Wine, and Chaos. Do you mean us? Oh. Ooh, that one was cute. Oh, man. Hey, sister.
No, that's not how they do it now. The kids do it now. It's like
The
this.
kids? Wait, why are we you have to be double jointed?
Yeah. Or somebody at work told me that they can do this.
What in the world is that?
Because this is a heart.
Okay, if you have to really look at it to make sure. That's too much.
You guys, we're just like throwing up hand signs. So I know that's really, really effective on an audio creative format. But hi, sister.
Hello, sister.
What's going on with you?
Thanks. Not a whole lot. It's Friday. It's been a week.
Mm-hmm.
I'm glad it's Friday.
Yeah? Oh, it's been like
busy.
that?
It's been busy. Just busy, always.
I texted you. I have to tell this to Chaos Kids. I texted you after we recorded last week, and I was like, so neither one of us bothered to mention the wine Amber was drinking. We just dived right into the story. And at the end, it was like, we didn't say anything about anything. There was no go to the order. It was just like, bye.
We were just like, and scene. I know. I realized that when I was doing the episode notes, because it's always on my summary. I was drinking a Gothic Red, in case anybody is curious.
In case anyone was wondering what Amber was drinking in the last episode.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
It's in the notes, guys. It's in the notes.
We're getting lazy. We got to really stay on our toes.
I don't know if it's lazy. I just think sometimes, some days, you're just not at your best, You're just not at your best, and you do what you can. And that's what last week was.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, sorry. I had an alarm go off at 6:40. I think I set that for 6:40 p.m. on accident. That was supposed to be my alarm this morning at 6:40 a.m.
Were you late today?
No.
Were you late? Okay. I was like,
Those are always like, my morning alarms are always like aspirational, but they're not like required,
Mm-hmm. I know. I don't even know why I set one.
I mean, anyway, sister, what are you drinking on this episode?
Thank you for asking. I'm drinking a white. I'm drinking a Chardonnay from Chateau St Michelle because I had an open white from my risotto that I made.
Right.
That turned out amazing, by the way.
Of course it did.
It did. I've never made risotto, and I was doing a huge batch, and it was so good.
Who were you feeding, an army?
Well, I did the birthday dinners here, and risotto was Gary's pick.
Gary and his weird random food choices for dinner.
He can pick whatever he wants. It was delicious.
Of course he can. He just stretched. It was a stretch goal for you. That's all.
Yeah. I was like, challenge accepted.
You nailed it. Obviously, you nailed
really good. It was really good.
Excellent. Should we get into it? I think you have a crime for me today.
I do have a crime for you today. I'm going to tell you a bum little story here. Are you ready?
Bring it.
All right. So let me tell you about Sara Pitcher.
Okay.
She is a young Christian woman who wanted to find a Christian husband.
Okay.
So she went on dating websites and was very specific that that's what she was looking for. And that is where she met Shawn Spink.
Okay.
I keep wanting to say sphincter because that's the maturity level that we're dealing with.
Right out the gate, we already have Amber's already laying down a foundation for us here.
Yeah.
Okay.
So he was a long haul truck driver, and the two of them had many long conversations about the Bible and their faith and all the things, right? And it was very obvious to Sara that he was very familiar with the Bible, and she thought Shawn was really handsome. Mm-hmm. He said that he went to church regularly, and he even delivered groceries to the elderly.
Oh, okay.
On one of their first dates, it was an event put on by Sara's church called the Good Neighbor Weekend. And it was a volunteer weekend where they did landscaping for people who needed it.
Okay.
So the two worked side by side, and Sara was impressed with how hard he worked. And Sara found out that Shawn had been married before and that he had found his ex-wife in bed with someone else.
Oh.
Yeah. So
Like-
he said, oh, sorry, go ahead.
I mean, like full on walked in on it happening?
That's what he said. Yeah.
That's okay. Wow. That's kind of brutal.
Oh my God.
No.
Oh, don't even ask. Can you imagine?
No,
Amber. I know. They're devastating. So he beat that guy up, which ended up
just so that's how that works out, guys.
Mhm.
Just FYI.
Yeah, well, he just wanted her to know that because he does have an assault charge on his record, and that's what it's from.
Oh, okay. Look, you kind of gave away the fact that this guy's a butthole, literally, like already, but like,
oh, way to bury the lead, Amber. God.
all I'm saying, I mean, now I'm already like, I'm suspicious of this story.
Okay, I'm sorry.
Because-
Should I start
because
over?
No, I'm suspicious. Whenever somebody tells you in the early stages, like, I have a felony, but here it's for a legitimate reason, you know?
You think that's a red flag? I was being serious.
Your face did not.
Oh, man.
Yeah, that's a red flag.
Listen.
All I'm saying is that he, was preemptively, in case she, I don't know, ran a background check on him.
Mm-hmm. Right.
What? This is all just so weird already. This is all so weird already.
I'm sorry.
It's okay. Don't be sorry. Don't know. You keep going.
Yeah. So anyway, needless to say, Sara would learn much later on that his first wife never cheated on him, and the assault charges was because he attacked her.
Oh, okay. See, okay, so I was right.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Sara said that she grew up without a father and she never really had a good example of what a healthy relationship was supposed to look like. So she wasn't really seeing the red flags. And when her and Shawn moved in with each other and immediately like the arguing started, she didn't necessarily know that that was abnormal.
I mean, the reality is that so many of us don't have that growing up. So many of us don't have that. We don't know. We don't know what's abnormal.
Yeah.
You know?
We've talked about this before. I feel like when people don't have the gut instinct, sometimes it's not their fault.
No, it's not their fault.
Mm-mm. Oh, yeah. So that's going on. And she said that they would have like, it progressively got to like big blowout fights. But ultimately, whatever Shawn said was how things were going to go.
I mean, I don't want to get too whatever about it, but I mean, this is very like, if you are like really in a believer of the Christian faith, right? Like it is a very common through all Christian denominations, the teaching of like God is the father, the husband then is like the father of the household, and the wife is his, what do they call her? Like keep mate or whatever, right? And he's supposed to like love his wife the way God loves the church in this like, ruling kind of like I am in charge kind of way. And like the wife like defers to the husband. He's the man of the house. I mean, like, so that's where like the man of the house stuff like comes from, right?
I can see, and I can see how being deeply religious and not having maybe the best upbringing, like it's just getting more and more muddled for her,
Right, exactly. I mean, this reminds me of the gal who was married to that guy who later turned out to be the serial raper, right? Right? And she also was like very deep in her faith, and she was being told by her church, like, you need to work it out. This is your husband,
Yeah.
It's all part of the same stew,
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So one day, Shawn and Sara were at home, and Shawn is upstairs working and there's a knock at the door. And so Sara answers the door, and it was one of the contractors who was doing work on their home. So she went upstairs to get Shawn, and it's like, hey, one of the workers is here. And after the contractor left, Shawn started to yell at her and told her that she is not allowed to open the door, especially to another man, and that she is never to let any man in the house without his permission. I love throwing these cases at you that are just going to make you furious. I know your face right now.
I can't.
I've rendered Naomi speechless.
I'm so angry right now. So angry.
Yeah. And Sara, she didn't love this, but she also in some ways thought that it was him being very protective of her. So they end up getting married. In order to get married in their church, they first had to do premarital counseling. And
right.
Sara said that about halfway through their first hour of counseling, the counselor interjected and said that her recommendation was that they not get married.
Oh.
Uh-huh. And when Shawn got up to use the restroom, the counselor pulled Sara aside and told her, do not marry that man.
So someone in the church was actually looking out for her.
But she, Sara felt like this woman just didn't know them and, she didn't want to hear it. So they go ahead and tie the knot anyway. Their fighting just gets worse and worse. And she said that Shawn would get explosive, like over nothing, and that he could not handle his anger at all. Just lost his goddamn mind.
King baby.
What?
King baby.
What does that mean?
It's like man-child, right? But he's the king of the house. He's the king of the house, but he's a fucking baby. He's a toddler. He's like, you know what I mean?
Yeah. Oh, I know what you mean.
Yeah, but women are the emotional ones. Just make
don't
sure
get
we
me
say
started.
that every episode.
Yeah,
every episode, we got to make sure we get that through. Make
anger
sure
is not an emotion, apparently.
It's not an emotion, and controlling it and working on it that's weak ass shit. Okay.
Weak ass shit. So she starts to be concerned that maybe this counselor was right and that they shouldn't have gotten married. And she says this to him. And when she says this, he goes into their bathroom and locks the door. And when he comes out, he has blood dripping down his arms because he had cut himself with a box cutter.
The fucking manipulation here.
Yep.
I cannot.
Yeah. So then he got in his car and drove off, right?
Okay.
So she called Shawn's mom and told her what was going on and asked her what to do. And Shawn's mom said, all I can tell you is to get away. I can't tell you more. Just get away.
Where was his mom giving her this advice before she married him?
I don't know. I don't know.
Sisters, we need to do better.
Ugh. That's so bad. Your own mom is like,
right?
Yeah, no. So she's super worried about him. She didn't know how badly he was hurt or where he was, but a few hours later, he comes home. She gets everything that she needs to clean up his cuts, which turned out to just be superficial. And she asked him why he did that. And he said that he was so scared of losing her and that he believed that God wanted them to be together. So I know. You know what? I'm going to try. I say this every week. I'm going to find a lighthearted crime for next time.
I hate him so much. I hate him so much.
He's a sphincter.
Yep.
Yeah. So she tells Shawn about her conversation with his mom, and he says that his mom has a history of sabotaging his life and to not let her come between them.
Oh, it's his mom sabotaging his life, not himself sabotaging his life. It has nothing to do with him and his actions.
No. Things are just happening to him.
Right. Right.
Yeah.
It's the women in his life.
Yeah.
It's all their fault.
Okay. So these two also waited to have sex until after they were married.
Okay.
I know. And Sara says that her sex life was not the romantic connection she was hoping it would be.
I'm shocked by this information. This guy isn't a gentle lover. I don't believe you. I can't understand.
This guy isn't a gentle lover. Sorry. I know, God.
I
know.
I mean, I feel for her. I really do. I mean, there's so much wrapped up in this. It's like her faith and like the societal pressure that says like this is what she's supposed to want, so she takes what she can get. Like, so she has to like get married, and then we're gonna have babies, and like because this is what women are supposed to do, and like she doesn't. I feel for her, but I'm at this point right now, Amber, where I literally want all women to just like link arm in arm and deny men of anything from us, just until they learn how to be better people. Just learn how to be better people, and then you can have access to women again.
Yeah.
Seriously.
That's hashtag trending.
Right?
Yes. Yes. God, do you know how many times, like Marissa and I used to do this, our other sister, I would just periodically do a gay check. Cause I'm like, please just let it be no.
Seriously.
You know?
No, seriously.
Yeah.
If it was a choice, so many women would be gay by now. Like so many women would be gay if it was a choice.
Absolutely.
Yeah, 100%.
Absolutely.
I could talk about this for the next 2 hours. Like we could have a whole other podcast about this stuff. Anyway, so
right. So
life
is bad. He was extremely manipulative and sometimes forceful.
Right.
So
of course he was.
As time goes on, Shawn just gets angrier and angrier, and he had a habit of retreating to the basement when he was angry and sometimes not returning for several hours.
I'm getting Don Hay vibes from this guy.
I know.
Right?
Yeah.
Like he's got like a hole dug up down there and like a 12-year-old and like thrown in it.
A garage cave. Yeah. Fucking, yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So on this one particular evening, the two got in a fight and Shawn went into his basement and he didn't come up until the next morning to get ready for work. What?
Okay.
Yeah. So after he leaves, she goes down into the basement and she sees that he had spray painted her name on a black punching bag with like red spray paint.
Okay.
I know. Yeah. And when he got home that evening and she asked him about it, he said that it's better to hit the punching bag than to hit her.
For now.
Mm-hmm.
Until it's not better and punching her in the face is better.
Oh my God. I fucking hate this guy. So things just get worse. And Shawn seemed to be less and less interested in having sex with Sara. And for a while, she was relieved about that.
Sure.
I don't blame her.
Yeah.
Relieved and concerned.
Right.
I've been in that spot before.
Where
I'm concerned, but also I don't want to.
Right.
It's very confusing.
No shit.
So she said that he's spending more and more time on his phone. So she decides to take a look through his phone and she finds that he has placed a personal ad on a website that said he was a married man looking for a married woman to have sex with. It's like an Ashley Madison thing.
Sure.
Mm-hmm. So when she confronts him about it, he said that he was lonely, but he had never actually met up with anyone.
Lie.
And Sara believes him for now.
Okay.
And she believes that unless he has hit her or cheated on her, that she didn't have the grounds for a divorce according to her religious beliefs.
Oh my God, this is what I'm talking about. But you know what? Here's the thing. Like, we've had extensive conversations personally about this stuff, about the notion that like how many people stay in a relationship that is toxic or done or all of the above because the slights are too slight and we feel like it's not a quote unquote good enough reason to leave. Like our happiness isn't a good enough reason to leave a shitty situation.
Yeah. And it's like you said, it's death by 1,000 paper cuts. You almost don't realize really how bad it is or that it's happening until it's 1,000 paper cuts, you know?
Right. Right.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Oh, yeah. So that's how she feels. But after finding this ad, she decides that she needed to do something. So she made the decision to go and stay at her mom's for a while. And while she's staying at her mom's, of course, Shawn is harassing her. He sent her a video of himself going through all of their photos together, and he's ripping the photos up and he's screaming about how he never meant anything to her. And like, he's just unhinged, right?
Great.
And he's sending so many videos that she had to turn her phone off, like full fucking videos of him losing his shit.
Okay.
So in 2017, after only 2 years of marriage, Sara files for divorce. And she moves from Indiana to Arizona. And so she's hopeful that because of the distance, she'll finally have some peace and Shawn will leave her alone. All the things, right?
Right.
Thank God they didn't have a child.
No kidding. Fresh start.
Fresh start. Yeah. So she's working on her own personal development and reconnecting with her old friends. She was always super passionate about photography. So she reestablishes her online presence for her photography services.
Okay.
And she ends up getting a text message from a potential customer asking her if she would take their engagement photos. And the couple wants their photos taken at this location that's a pretty isolated place. And you first have to like park, and then it's like a 2.5 mile hike up to get there. Mm-hmm.
That's going to cost you extra.
That's exactly what she said. She agreed to take the job, but she said it's going to be a little bit more because she's got to put on gear and all that shit. So not too long after accepting the job, she gets a text from this person that says that they know Shawn and that they were surprised that she left him because he's a really good guy.
Okay, Shawn.
Mm-hmm. So she ends up sending a text to these customers and just saying that something came up and she wouldn't be able to take their photos.
Bye.
That is fucking creepy. Let me lure you into some...
Right? That is exactly what he was trying to do.
Mm-hmm.
I see right through you, Shawn. I see right through you.
Fuck this guy.
Yeah.
Then she randomly gets a text message from Shawn that says he's coming to Arizona and he can't wait to see her and they can be together.
What?
Uh-huh.
Okay, we broke up.
I don't even own a gun.
Right, exactly. That's exactly what I'm saying. Hi, Wayne. No.
Hi. Hi. Well, he tells her that God needs them to be together. Mm-hmm. So she replies that she doesn't want to be with him. They are divorced and she wishes him the best, but go away.
Bye-bye.
Mm-hmm. And at this time, she didn't believe that Shawn knew exactly where she lived, so she felt safe. But then Shawn texted her that he knew her address, and he sent her address. This is so... I know I've talked about this a million times, but this idea of somebody stalking you is just the most fucking terrifying.
I know how much you hate it. I hate it, but I know you hate it even more.
I hate it the most. So it's September 15th, 2018. Sara opens her front door and there is Shawn.
Oh my God.
This fucker, right when she opens the door, sprayed a can of bug spray onto her face.
Oh my God. What?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And as he's doing this, he told her that he had been watching her for weeks and that he could see that she was happy and he wasn't. And so he's mad. He then pulled a knife out and told her he was going to cut her into pieces and put her in a suitcase.
Oh, suitcase. Classic. Suitcase is a classic.
Mm-hmm. He then went on to basically torture her for 3 hours, and Sara fought him like hell. She says that he put a plastic bag over her face and tried to suffocate her. And then while the bag was over her face, she says that she remembers hearing crunching, and then she felt this horrible pain in her right eye, but she still couldn't get the bag off of her face, so she couldn't see what it was. And the bag was like going into her mouth when she tried to breathe, so she was like starting to fade out.
Oh my God.
This is so fucking horrific. She is finally able to get Shawn off of her, and she got the bag off of her face, and she still doesn't know what to do to get away. So she tries to get on his good side.
Yep.
After all this, she tries to get on his good side to make him happy. She's able to convince him that she was miserable without him and that she missed him and loved him and really wanted to be with him.
Okay.
So after all this, he has sprayed her face, and she's like, let's go get some ice cream. Okay. And he's like, that sounds great. But he first wants to have sex to seal the deal.
Oh, God.
Mm-hmm. So she does. I can't. Like, that makes my skin crawl. This poor woman.
Fucking.
Mm-hmm. So they leave the house, and Sara covers her wounds with a hat and sunglasses, and they head into town. And as soon as Sara sees a group of people, she jumps out of the car and runs towards them and asks for help.
Smart woman.
Uh-huh. And God, this guy is fucking dumb. These guys, I don't want to say easy, but You can tell they're not. They're cuckoo
Right.
upstairs.
That was too simple. That was too simple.
Mm-hmm.
That was too simple.
Mm-hmm. So he drives away. Sarah is taken to the hospital. She had been stabbed in the eye.
Oh my God,
The
no.
pain and the crunching through the bag. He had stabbed her in the eye.
Oh my God. That makes
So,
my stomach flip.
Oh my God. She's in the hospital for 5 days. The doctors told her that her eye would never open again, but eventually it did. She is
Oh, thank God.
she's partially blind in her right eye though. Mm-hmm. He was apprehended pretty quickly, and when he went to trial, he was sentenced to life in prison without the possibility of parole, which is kind
Was
of
this
a
in
big
Arizona?
deal. Arizona attempted murder. Yep.
Oh, they called it attempted murder?
Mm-hmm.
Wow.
I know. And that's another online dating story for you.
I mean,
Just kidding. I've got to stop watching this show. That was another Evil Lives Here.
I had a feeling that was the one. Interesting, because the story that I referenced earlier that you had told about the serial raper was also an episode of Evil Lives Here.
Have you ever watched that show?
Like once or twice.
The opening, credits is so creepy. I'm scared before it even starts.
Oh,
I don't know why I
sister,
keep
why do you
watching
do
it.
that to yourself?
I don't know. Fuck. I don't know.
God, there's just so much in all of that. Like, there's just oh my God. The entitlement and the fucking self-centeredness and the no emotional regulation or maturity. Like, just
that poor woman.
There's so much. There's just so much about what's wrong with the world, like in that story. You know what I mean? Like, I knew that she survived because the way you were telling the story, and I'm really glad that she was one of the lucky ones who made it out of that alive.
I am too. God.
Well,
creepy.
sister, thanks for that.
You're welcome. Do you have a palate cleanser, or is this a bummer?
Kinda, yeah. No, I'm going to tell you about the strange case of Steven Kubacki. Have you ever heard about this?
Mm-mm.
Okay. So in February of 1978, Steven Kubacki was a 23-year-old student at Hope College, which is a small private Christian university in Holland, Michigan, on the southeastern side of Lake Michigan.
Okay.
Steven was either a German or a history major, not 100% certain on that, but he was set to graduate that spring. Steven was a particularly engaged student, having co-written an op-ed for the campus newsletter the year before, arguing that the school should install an electronic security system in the university library to keep books from being stolen, as he deemed the collection on hand to be subpar, owing to what he considered a rampant theft problem.
Oh, okay.
Steven was described by other students as brilliant and a little more free-spirited than the average student at that very conservative school, and this may explain why Steven chose to live off campus. He was super into Dungeons and Dragons, but he was also an avid outdoorsman, or a bushman.
A bushman.
For our Australian listeners. He had climbed mountains while on his studies abroad in Europe and was regularly out in the area during the snowy Michigan winters for cross-country skiing.
Wow.
So a weekend in February, Steven is 1978. Steven decided to do a solo cross-country skiing weekend, and there was nothing out of the ordinary about that, and nor was the area unfamiliar to him. He'd done stuff like this before. But then the day after Steven left on his weekend trip, some snowboarders in Saugatuck spotted a pair of cross-country skis abandoned with a backpack and contacted authorities to report what clearly looked like a missing person situation. They also deduced very quickly that the contents of this pack belonged to Steven, and search and rescue hopped into action. According to police reports, Steven's belongings were left in a neat and orderly manner. The skis were side by side, facing the lake, about 8 inches apart. The ski poles were stuck in the snow, upright on the outside of the skis, and the backpack was sitting on top of the skis, fully packed. The only other sign that Steven had been there was a 200-yard trail of footprints in the snow leading past the edge of the ice where they abruptly ended.
Oh, this is going to leave me all frustrated, like the Yuba County or something, where it's just like, none of this makes sense.
None of it makes sense.
Oh my God. Okay.
Also, it wasn't a driver's license or a school ID that indicated these were Steven's belongings. It was a dentist's bill in the backpack.
Oh, that's odd. Okay.
A plane went into the air for an aerial search. The Coast Guard was called in. The Michigan State Police interviewed Steven's roommate at the time, who told them that Steven had said 2 days earlier that he was going cross-country skiing, as he had many times before, and he was certain something bad had happened to Steven out there. And another student at Hope College told police that she had seen Steven the night before he left. He was in a great mood and was excitedly sharing his plans for the upcoming week. She was also certain that whatever happened to him was some kind of terrible accident. A couple came forward to speak with police. They said on the 19th of February, the day before the snowboarders found Steven's stuff, they had seen a young man in that same area climbing on top of piles of jagged ice near the lake shore, and that he matched Steven's description. They also said he wasn't alone, that there was a young, petite woman with long, dark hair with him, and she was taking pictures of Steven.
That seems like an odd thing to do. He's like, ice climbing? Is that a thing?
I don't really know. I mean, I guess. So when police asked Steven's roommate and that other friend who this young woman could be, both of them were stumped. As far as they knew, Steven didn't have any girlfriends locally. All his girlfriends were overseas.
And he had made it a point to say that he was going on a solo.
Going alone.
Yeah.
Yes, that's right. Also in the police report is mention of a young woman attending Hope College, possibly the same one interviewed before who had seen Steven the night before his weekend ski trip, possibly another young woman entirely. Her details are redacted from the report. But the police report states that she stopped going to classes around the time that Steven vanished. And within 2 or 3 weeks of that, she left campus to go live with an aunt in Grand Rapids. She was apparently very upset when Steven went missing and had even threatened to take her own life, going so far as to leave a suicide note for her roommate.
Oh, that's awful.
Steven's family was getting some weird shit on their end too. Steven's mom called state police in March to tell them that a friend of the family had been getting phone calls telling these friends that they should make some calls of their own concerning Steven's disappearance. But the names and numbers this anonymous caller gave the family friend only led to a disconnected number.
What?
Yeah.
That is weird.
It's weird. And then Steven's mom went through her own phone bills and realized that disconnected number showed up as an incoming call to her home phone in the previous September. It was a number that Steven had called her from, and they had spoken on the phone at that time for about 15 minutes, but she had no idea where he was calling from then. Police confirmed that number had been disconnected that same month in September of 77, and the name of that person or business is redacted from the police report, and it's never mentioned again.
Weird.
Yeah.
Okay.
Michigan Bell was either unwilling or unable to track down the person or people that were anonymously calling the family friend. And when the state police asked the Hope College dean of students, like, hey, do you know who might have been making these weird calls to the family friend of Steven's mom? The dean said Steven had a friend group of about 20 people who were all weird, and it could be any of them.
Sorry. Okay, thanks for your help.
Right?
They were all weird.
Investigators concluded that Steven must have fallen through the ice to his death by either drowning or hypothermia. To be clear, the ice over the lake showed no signs of being broken through, but this was their answer.
The first thing I thought when you said like how his stuff was placed, like, and by the lake, it's like, I know this is not what he was doing. It almost sounds like he was going for a swim.
Right.
But it's like, why the fuck would you do that in it? Yeah.
In the middle of winter in Michigan?
Yeah.
Right. Where the lake is frozen over?
Right.
Steven's family disagreed. They were certain Steven was still alive somewhere, and they spent thousands of dollars on a private investigator to continue searching for their son. Steven's brother also told police that it was possible he had run off to Germany to be with one of his 2 girlfriends there. Plus, he had one in France also. So the police did check flight records out of Chicago during the weekend that Steven disappeared, but they found nothing.
Mm-hmm.
And even the detectives weren't entirely convinced that Steven had drowned in the frozen lake and had his dental records sent to Chicago to see if he might be among the unidentified victims discovered in John Wayne Gacy's house.
Oh, I just got chills. Oh, God.
Police documents show that the search for Steven was more intensive and exhaustive than the news at the time would lead the public to believe. And even though many assumed Steven was dead, Hope College awarded him a bachelor's degree in absentia.
Oh.
More than a year would pass, and then on May 5th, 1979, over 14 months after Steven disappeared, the doorbell rang at Steven's aunt's house in Great Barrington, Massachusetts. When his aunt opened the door, it was Steven standing on her doorstep.
What? Wait. Oh, my God. What? Okay, go on.
Mm-hmm. Soon after, Steven would reunite with the rest of his family in South Deerfield, Massachusetts. Steven's story to his family was that he had woken up on a grassy knoll in Pittsfield, Massachusetts, about 720 miles, almost exactly straight east from where he disappeared, next to Lake Michigan. Steven claimed to have no memory of the 14 months that he was gone, and he also claimed he didn't even initially realize how much time had passed until he bought a newspaper and saw the date.
What? But where was he existing? Was he in a house? Was he being fed? Like, what was he doing?
It's part of the mystery.
No.
After news got out about this strange and miraculous return of Steven, he told reporters that when he, quote, woke up in Pittsfield, he was wearing clothes he didn't recognize as his own and had a backpack filled with maps and hitchhiking signs that suggested he had traveled all over, from Sacramento to Utah to Chicago. He also had $40 in cash, new glasses, tennis shoes, and a t-shirt from a marathon in Wisconsin.
Is this what Forrest Gump was based off of? Like, what are we doing? What?
He also said in one interview, quote, "I feel like I've done a lot of running." He claimed that he remembered everything up to the point that he disappeared and that the last thing he remembered was feeling cold and scared of being lost in the frozen darkness.
Oh my God.
Of course, news of this crazy reappearance was reported on, and in one interview, Steven told a reporter that he was pretty sure his blackout was caused by exhaustion and exposure and that he would definitely go see a doctor to make sure he was physically okay, but he had no intention of seeking any kind of psychiatric care. He was adamant that he was in a healthy state of mind when he left for his weekend skiing trip, and he was still in a healthy state of mind upon his return. He is quoted as saying, "My father was going to sign over the house to me. I had 3 courses at school and no trouble. I left a romance in Germany. There was no trouble with girls. I had a job lined up with the Holland Sentinel newspaper." I think in saying all this, the implication was that he had no troubles in his life that he was running from or would have any reason for him to disappear about, right? Like, life was good. Why would he run away without a trace on purpose?
Okay, keep going. I'm suspicious. If this does not have a satisfying ending, I don't know what I'm going to do, but I'll think of something.
I believe in you, sister.
Thank you.
So once the story made national headlines, a student named Ron Curtis at Berkshire Christian College in Lenox, Massachusetts, contacted the Associated Press, and he told them that on May 5th, 1979, the day of Steven's reappearance, he picked up a hitchhiker that looked a whole hell of a lot like Steven. He said this hitchhiker told him that he had flown from San Francisco to Boston and taken a bus to Pittsfield. This hitchhiker called himself Nathan. Ron said that Nathan never said anything to him about waking up on a grassy hill. Ron drove Nathan to a house in Great Barrington. This was Steven's aunt's house. But that Nathan told Ron that this was the house of a friend that he was visiting with news of a mutual acquaintance who has been missing for some time.
What?
Mm-hmm.
Oh, God.
In the decades since, Steven's story has been mostly forgotten, and he's quietly moved on with his life. He moved to somewhere in the Pacific Northwest and is a psychologist and an author. I found a content creator that did an interview with him. I even paid for the Patreon so I could get behind the paywall and listen to it, but I actually didn't end up listening to it for reasons. But this other dude and him were like interviewed on this video podcast or whatever. Steven and this guy are collaborating on writing a book about Steven's story. And the interview happened this past summer, like back in July of this year, 2023. And the book has yet to be published as far as I can tell. But the host who interviewed these two was explicitly told he couldn't ask Steven any questions about his disappearance. So I'm not even really sure what the point of this interview was, except Steven clearly wants to make the most out of publishing this book about his story and doesn't want to give anything out for free on the interwebs. But as far as we all know, Steven has maintained all these years that he has no recollection of those 14 months that he was missing.
This sounds like some weird, like, amnesia plot line out of a soap opera. Like,
Right.
what in the world? Like, that's not a thing. And he's just like, fine. Like, oh, I just, everything's fine.
Yep.
No.
So the corners of the interwebs that have not forgotten Steven's story are the spaces that talk about and are fascinated with the Lake Michigan Triangle.
Ooh. Okay.
And it's as eerie as it sounds. Like the Bermuda Triangle, the Lake Michigan Triangle is an area on and near Lake Michigan where various strange occurrences have been documented over the years, things that defy explanation and seem too strange to be real.
Mm-mm.
In 1891, a schooner called Thomas Hume was heading off across the lake, having just dropped off a load of lumber, when a huge storm looms ahead. The ship that was meant to accompany the Thomas Hume, the Rouse Simmons, decides to peace out and head back to Chicago, where they had both started. They just noped out of running straight into that storm. The Thomas Hume keeps going, but it never arrives in Muskegon, where it was headed. The wooden boat was never found, and not even one piece of driftwood was recovered after an extensive search.
Jesus.
21 years later, November of 1912, the Rouse Simmons is still going steady, and it is setting off to transport Christmas trees from Thompson, Michigan to Chicago. A crew of 16 and a few lumberjacks hitching a ride to Chicago set sail and never arrive in Chicago. The ship was spotted sailing in clear conditions with a distress flag flying. A lifeboat was sent out to provide aid, but when it arrived, there was nothing to find. Again, there's no wreckage.
And no
A
people?
year later, no people. A year later, Christmas trees begin to wash up along the shore. A fisherman in Two Rivers catches the captain's wallet a year later. No further trace is discovered.
What?
The Thomas Hume was discovered at the bottom of the lake in 2006 in near perfect condition.
No.
The Rouse Simmons was found sunken in 165 feet of water. No sign of what took it down.
That is so spooky.
Then there was the case of the Rosabelle. In 1921, 11 crew members aboard the ship were heading to Benton Harbor, carrying a large shipment of lumber, but they never made it to Benton Harbor. On the 29th of October, a ferry boat found the capsized Rosabelle some miles from the Wisconsin coastline. The boat was damaged. It definitely looked like it had been in a crash, probably rammed by a freight steamer, maybe. Initially, the local Coast Guard was hoping that the crew had been carried off by the larger boat because there was no sign of the men, even though the wreck was likely discovered fairly soon after whatever had happened. But the crew was never found, and neither was any other vessel that might have been involved in what looked to obviously be a major collision, which tore the stern out of the Rosabelle. And this was the second unsolved mystery involving the Rosabelle. That ship, wrecked in 1921, had been rebuilt and took its name from a vessel that had basically had the same exact thing happen in 1875 near Grand Haven. Capsized boat, looked like a crash, no cause was ever found, and all the crew was lost.
Oh my God. What in the world?
The list of ships lost to this area of Lake Michigan is long, and it's especially strange as Lake Michigan is a calm and easily navigable body of water.
Mm-hmm.
Probably one of the most famous incidents in the Triangle happened in June of 1950. Northwest Orient Flight 2500, traveling from New York's LaGuardia Airport to Seattle, made its last radio contact at 11:13 p.m. while flying over Lake Michigan. The next morning, search crews set out to find the aircraft near the location of its final radio transmission and found no sign of the plane. Later the same day, the Coast Guard discovered an oil slick near Benton Harbor where they started finding and pulling stuff out of the water that could have fallen freely from the plane, like luggage, cushions, blankets, pillows.
Mhm.
Eventually, shredded body parts began to wash up on the shore of Lake Michigan. The state of the human remains suggested a mid-air explosion, but the items recovered showed no signs of fire damage.
What?
The aircraft itself has never been found, despite annual searches, and there's never been any explanation for the disaster. But 2 police officers reported seeing a strange red light over Lake Michigan about 2 hours after the plane's last radio communication. The light hovered in the sky for 10 minutes before it abruptly disappeared.
Aliens?
Even unsolved mysteries have gotten hip to the weirdness of the triangle. In the season 3 reboot of the show on Netflix, episode 2 covers the incident in 1994, where over 300 residents of Western Michigan reported seeing unexplained light phenomena over Lake Michigan. One of those witnesses was even a National Weather Service radar operator. Some of the witnesses described seeing 5 or 6 unusual cylindrically shaped objects in the sky, some with colored lights. One observer likened the objects to a string of floating Christmas lights, and another described a fireball with red and green lights falling to Earth.
What is going on? I have never heard of this before.
Have you ever heard of the Michigan Triangle?
No, it's creeping me out. I want to go.
So I got a lot of my information about Steven's story from this series of articles written by Ellen Killeran, who went digging to get as much as she could about his case. Her last installment in this 4-part series is about the triangle, where she references a podcast that she listened to called Strange Sessions, who did an episode all about the Lake Michigan Triangle. And I guarantee you there's tons of other podcasts that have covered the Lake Michigan Triangle. It's like one of those, right?
Mm-hmm.
But in that episode, she heard a story, an account of an incident on the lake written by Kathy Dorr, of something Kathy personally experienced out there in early summer of 1978, just a few months after Steven's disappearance. Kathy was part of a competitive sailing crew that was out on Lake Michigan for a practice run on a very hot summer evening. There were 3 groups on 3 sailboats out there practicing together. So Kathy actually published this on her own blog. Like she put this out on the interwebs herself. And this is what she wrote. This is the middle of summer, a hot summer day. Not an hour out of port, and quite unexpectedly, a dense fog rapidly descended upon us. The winds were erratic, filling the mainsail from 2 opposing directions. I leaned over the rail and looked at the surface of the lake. It was calm, with little movement. Strangely, a few seconds later, as I righted myself, I found I was extremely cold. I turned toward the helm to ask my crewmates if they too were cold, and to my utter astonishment, they were no longer standing next to me. Dumbfounded, I called out and located them standing up on the aft deck, where it was several degrees warmer. They seemed perplexed and urged me to join them, and that's when I noticed that no one was steering the boat. The captain raised his arms high over his head, gleefully wiggling his hands and fingers in the air, and stated he hadn't been steering for the past 10 minutes. Yet not 1 minute before, I was certain he had been standing next to me at the helm. Draped in dense fog, the vessel began a curious aquatic dance. Slowly but deliberately, she turned on her axis, completing 3 perfect 360-degree pirouettes without ever crossing the wind. Then, just as suddenly as it had appeared, the fog vanished. To our utter astonishment, we saw the other 2 boats, all within a few hundred yards of each other, rotating in exactly the same manner.
No.
Kathy
There's some
also-
kind of weird fucking vortex right there.
Right?
Oh my God. The captain is gleefully... What is going on?
it gets weirder. Kathy
Oh,
also
God.
described feeling like her dead father was near her and with her during this time, and also not being able to account for hours of time once the boats returned to port. Even weirder, she says that none of the other sailors she was out there with would ever acknowledge what happened. She wrote, quote, "To my utter astonishment, no one would talk about it. Worse yet, they behaved as if nothing out of the ordinary had happened. The vortical winds alone would have given them fodder for years. It became evident that I was the only one in remembrance."
Oh, she thinks that they just actually don't remember it.
Don't even remember it.
Oh my God. Did she? You don't know the answers, I'm sure, but does,
I mean, answers for you.
I like, at least Steven remembers that he doesn't remember. Do you know what I mean? Like none of them
Right.
even say like, I can't recall that trip or anything.
Right.
Oh, okay.
More weird shit on the lake. In 1937, Captain George R. Donner is sailing the O.M. McFarland through the gnarly, icy upper Great Lakes. After navigating his crew through the dangerous waters, he retires to his cabin to rest. George is 58 years old, and he is exhausted at this point and needs a laydown after getting safely through that tough part of the voyage. And as the ship sails through the Lake Michigan Triangle, he shuts the door to his cabin. A few hours later, the ship is almost at its destination, Port Washington, and crew members go to wake him up, but their knocks go unanswered. The door is locked from the inside. Eventually, they break down the door and find the cabin empty. The entire ship is searched. No sign of the captain. No explanation is ever discovered, and the disappearance remains unsolved.
No. Is there a window in there? Could it have been suicide? Did he take himself
Usually
overboard?
the windows that are like on the sides of ship are not big enough for humans to climb out of them.
I know.
Definitely not grown men.
Oh my God. I hate this.
In 2007, our archaeology professor Mark Hawley and his colleague Brian Abbott ran a sonar search around the Lake Michigan Triangle in an effort to find shipwrecks. They discovered in about 40 feet of water a line of stones arranged in a pattern reminiscent of Stonehenge.
I just got fucking goosebumps all over.
They sent divers to photograph the area and found alongside the line of stones what could be a prehistoric carving of a mastodon, which went extinct over 12,000 years ago. The site has not been authenticated, and the exact location remains a secret. Much like Stonehenge, there is little explanation for the carefully arranged underwater stones, what they signify, or who put them there. The stories of the Lake Michigan Triangle go on and on and on, but suffice it to say, many people believe that Steven's disappearance and reappearance without any memory of what happened to him should be counted as one of them.
Fuck. Oh, I got to get this book. I got to know.
I mean, it's not out yet.
Oh, when it's out, I'm getting it.
I mean, keep an eye. We'll see.
And he's here in the Pacific Northwest these days.
Somewhere, yeah. It's a very vague notion, the Pacific Northwest could be anywhere.
Oh, sister, where do you find this stuff?
Where do you find your weird shit?
Evil lives here. I don't know. Shit. That was amazing and spooky.
Spooky, right?
That's so spooky.
And it's funny because I was working on this. So I was just going to cover like the disappearance, reappearance. Like that's weird enough, right? Like that's weird enough. The disappearance, reappearance. And then as I started digging in, I was like, oh, Michigan Triangle. Like that's an interesting, like I'll like fold that into the telling. Right. And then as I was writing up and like looking into incidents of the Michigan Triangle, I literally like had like a ding, ding, ding in my head. And I was like, wait a minute. I'm pretty sure that the latest season of Unsolved Mysteries covered an incident over Lake Michigan in the Michigan Triangle. And I went and looked, of course I was right. That whole, like hundreds of people saw UFO activity there. That was just like the most that was like the most notorious and largest incident of that happening. There's tons of, if you go digging into the Michigan Triangle, I'm sure that there's it's a rabbit hole you could go down. There's all kinds of reports of UFO activity. Like a good 1,500 ships have been lost on the lake.
That's so spooky. When you were talking about the lady who said all of her crewmates went to the upper deck and the captain was being weird, like it sounded like mass hysteria almost.
Kind of. But the fact that all three of the boats were like spinning in circles at the same time, like that's weird.
That is weird. I don't like it at all.
Nope. We're not putting a pin in Lake Michigan. Let's just put it that we're not.
Oh, we're not going there?
No, we're not going to Lake Michigan.
You don't want to go on a sailing trip?
I really don't.
Okay. All right. Fair enough. We'll have to skip it this time.
Well, sister, we did it.
We did. That was amazing.
Thank you. You too.
Thank you. We're on all the things.
We are on all the things. Also, you guys, we're like one Chaos Kid club member away from another virtual wine night. I feel like we've been saying that for a long time. Get it together, Chaos Kids. Let's get together. What do you say? Like, join the patreon.com/crime, wine, and chaos.
$5 gets you in.
$5 gets you in and gets you a bonus episode every month that is behind the paywall. And we deliver. We deliver on our promise.
We do.
Anything else, sis?
No, that's it.
Write us a review. Go rate us. Go rate us and write us a review. We love that. Somebody did recently and it made our week. It made our week.
Oh, yes. What was it? The title was Thank You for Asking.
The title was Thank You for Asking.
I appreciate that. Thank you for the review. Thank you for asking. Thank you for reviewing. Oh my gosh. Love it.
Oh, sister. I love you.
Love you.
That was so chaotic.
Terrible. Bye.
Bye.
Wine and Chaos is produced by 8th Direction Records. Artwork by Joshua M. Davis. Music by Paul Abner. If you would like to support the show, you can visit our Patreon page at crimewineandchaos.com/Patreon. Cheers.
You know what? I approve a pause for that. That's an appropriate reason to. Okay.